here and go. Thank you for the recording, ladies and gentlemen. It's top 10 and safer. Big line to the way for the safe, for the cheese, for the safe. Time turns on associates, so get down on these. Let it go. Now you're every second.
When they get caught, they can cross on your
It's good to see ya.
That was those ones.
This is July 1st, 1981, 9:58 p.m.
Oh, yeah. It's almost my bedtime, so I have to hurry. I think all the written information that y'all want was included in the thing I wrote up for the bicentennial there a few years ago. I think I had average childhood with a lot of mother and father and sort of a low middle class, maybe poor financial condition. My dad worked as a salesman for a cheese and bologna, cold meats business, and a family business for 27 years. The company went bankrupt during the Depression in the early 30s, and my dad subsequently got a job with another company, Henry P.A.P.E. in Long Island City, doing the same type of thing. His salary ran about $25 a week. That he supported my wife and two of us. We had at the time my aunt Mamie, his sister, Dad's sister, was living with us. She wasn't married at the time. She was years old. She contributed about $8 a week. She worked for the Richard Hudnut Company, manufactured perfume and stuff like that there. My cousin George Seagull came over from Germany. My cousin George Seagull came over from Germany about 1928. As a young man, he was about 18 years old. I was about 5 at the time. He lived initially with my Uncle George and my Aunt Anna and their 3 girls. And then sometime during the early 30s, he decided to move in with us. And he lived with us, and he also contributed about $8 a week. So we had pretty healthy income at that particular point in time. I always admired my cousin George. He was young, good-looking, energetic. I said about 13 years older than I was. He was very mechanically inclined and went to work almost immediately for the Sterling Truck Company, and made out quite well. He was always ambitious and started in the business for himself. I guess was in business for himself about 40 years or so until he retired. Always did quite well. I used to help him in the summertime, and any mechanical knowledge that I had of automobiles, I got from him, actually. He lives now in Port Washington, New York, with his wife Ethel. They have no children, and we visit was a doll. She spoiled the heck out of me. What my mother wouldn't give me, my aunt would. So I was the baby of the family. My sister was older, and I'm afraid I was quite a booby and got what I wanted by pouting and stamping my feet and crying and so forth and so on. Athletically, I was sort of about the 9th kid picked out of 10. So I really wasn't very good athletically. Student-wise, I was pretty good. I got skipped a grade. My sister was much better. She got skipped 3 grades. And I graduated from high school. I just turned 17. This was a disappointment because at the time I graduated from an aviation school, and you had to be 18 to get a job in aviation in airplane factories. So I had to wait almost a full year before I was qualified old enough to work in an airplane factory. And as a result, I never did work in an airplane factory because, well, first I worked for Sears Roebuck for about 6 or 8 months as an office boy, and then I went to work as an apprentice machinist. And World War II came along, and I enlisted in December of 42 and was called up in February of 43. So that sort of finished my aviation mechanic course. I got on the other side of it and started flying instead, I guess. I stopped it. Okay, well, let's see, I went into the service February 21st, called a.Group, February 21st, 1943. And, before I go to that, thinking of all the dumb things you do and how you really hurt your parents upon occasion. New Year's in 1943, we had a big party at home with all the relatives coming in because I knew I was going to be going into the Army in a month or 2. And I didn't show up all night. And I was in the doghouse for a long time for that little fiasco.
What did you do?
Well, we went over to Times Square and just celebrated. Wandered around. I got home.
Were you 18?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I had just turned 19. And New York City, you can drink at age 18. You can drink, as you know, in New York City, I don't know what it is now, but then you had to wait until you're 18 to drive. But you could drink at 18, so you could drink and drive all the same birthday. Which was a little dangerous. Anyway, February 21st of 43 was a Sunday, and I left from Penn Station with much tears by my family, and I don't know, sort of, I guess, not sure if I cried or not, I don't think so, but maybe I did. And went to Atlantic City for basic, and as I say, it was a Sunday, and we went to Convention Hall in Atlantic City and issued our uniforms and all that good stuff. Canteens and bayonets and so forth as they do. And we were billeted in the Hotel Claridge, where I think it's pretty neat to be in a hotel, but of course what they do, they moved all the civilian furniture out and put about 8 double bunks in the room, so you were really pretty crowded in there. And when we checked in, as I mentioned, it was a Sunday, so we were wearing Class A uniforms, and I thought everybody wore Class A uniforms all the time. So the next morning about 5 o'clock, the old whistle blew, and we didn't have a bugle. The guy just stuck his head in the door and just blew the whistle as loud as he could. And it was time to get up, so I jumped into my Class A's and I started charging down to the mess hall. And when I got out in the hall, I knew something was wrong because everybody was dressed different than me. I was supposed to put on the fatigues, you know. So one of the DIs, the drill instructor said, "Hey, dum-dum, get back in there and change your fatigues." So I went back and I changed my fatigues, and I wasn't smart enough I was in a hurry and nervous and not being used to being yelled at like that. And I did take my wallet out of my Class A uniform, and sure enough, when I came back from the chow hall, my wallet was gone, and my relatives and my parents had all given me money, before I went, so I lost about $50 or so, I guess, on the first day. So that was my introduction into the Army, which wasn't too much fun. But basic was sort of medium. The first month, I guess it was, we were under quarantine, and that means you can't go in, you can't go out anywhere, get a pass or anything. And finally, after a month, they let you out on a weekend pass. And my mother and my father and my sister came down by train to Atlantic City, and we had a visit. There's the pictures are floating around were taken during that particular visit. I think I only had the opportunity to visit once. And I was homesick. Once I got away from home, I was homesick during basic training. And after about 5 or 6 weeks, they put us on a train. And we've been in the service now, when they put you on a train, number one, they don't tell you exactly where you're going, and they never tell you where you're going. So you get on a train, and that's all you know, is you're on a troop train. You don't know how long you're going to be on it or where you're going to go. So we took off and ended up in Vermont, Norwich University, Northfield, Vermont, which is near Montpelier, the capital. And it was about March, I guess, of 43, and it was cold as heck up there. Just after March in the snow and all that thing. But then we stayed there through about August, I guess. It was really beautiful up there in August. And again, my mother and father and Aunt Josie Kalinsky came up to visit, plus my sister and her husband Bill Kalinsky, my brother-in-law, came up several times. We just had a good old time. And I began to get used to the service and the routine, and really enjoyed it. We left in August, because as I talk about this thing, I think about things that I haven't thought about in my years. I remember we sneaked out a couple of times past the guards to go downtown, and we don't know what the heck there was to do in town. So we were a small town, and then we'd sneak back in again. Past.
What'd you have to do to sneak past the guard?
Well, it was a dormitory type arrangement with a bunch of dorms around a square, almost like a parade, and the guards would walk back and forth, and you'd wait until they walked that way, and you'd crawl on your belly or and go over the embankment and down the hill. I did contact, I guess, pneumonia in February, when I first got there in March, and spent a week or so in the hospital they had there. Nothing real serious. From there we got on a troop training again. We didn't know where we were going, and I remember what I forgot to say was on the train trip to Vermont, that we passed within a half a block of the house where I lived, the house where my mother and father and sister were living, And it was about late at night, I could look down the street and see the house and the light there, and that was the loneliest feeling that I had in my life. I was so dear and yet so far, because they didn't know I was going by, and there I was, but I couldn't get out, and the train wouldn't stop, and I didn't know where I was going. Just to round up the train trip, when we did leave Vermont, we again got on the train, we were unsure where we were going. I remember stopping at one place, and in the middle of the night, and a bunch of the ladies were down at the station and gave us coffee and donuts, all that good stuff, They said, we said, where are they? And they said, Binghamton, New York. And I had never heard of Binghamton, New York in my life. And we proceeded on and eventually ended up in Nashville, Tennessee. But just this past weekend, 2 weekends ago, we had a race up at Binghamton, New York, and Johnny and my son John and I towed our midget up to Binghamton, and that was the first time I was there since 1943. But it's changed a little bit, but not much. While the phone was ringing, I was asked a question by Connie Klinsky, my niece, my sister's daughter, and she had heard something about my parents objecting to my going into the service in 1943. That was very true. When the war broke out in 41, everyone was outraged that the Japanese dare do what they did at Pearl Harbor, and of course immediately Hitler declared war on us the next day, and there was a great national feeling of patriotism, and most young fellows wanted to run and enlist, and I too wanted to, and I had just turned 18, November the 24th, this happened on December the 7th, so it was a funny situation in that you had to register for the draft when you were 18, but you couldn't voluntarily enlist without your parents' consent until you were 21. So I wanted to enlist, and my parents wouldn't hear of it, and it took me from right after the war started in December 41 until December 42 before I convinced my parents that I was going to be drafted eventually anyway, and they might as well let me go in to do what I wanted to do and get into the air portion of the Army Air Force, and apply for pilot training, which I did, and they finally signed my papers and I was able to enlist. So that's how I got in. I was asked another question while the tape recorder was off, and when did I start smoking? I started smoking in high school. I guess I was about 16 years old. Like most kids, I wanted to impress my friends that I was cool and grown up and all that good stuff. And of course, it starts with, in those days, buying a cigarette for a penny. We called them Lucy's, and you bought a cigarette for a penny, and maybe you spent 3 or 4 cents a day. But pretty soon you got hooked and you were smoking a pack a day. And of course I smoked that for about 40 years or so until a few years ago when I had a circulation problem and decided I better quit. So I quit.
Did your parents know you smoked when you first started?
No. Actually, I started smoking more or less regularly at 16, and they knew it then. But now that I'm thinking about it, when I was in grade school, I would sneak a smoke every once in a while. My dad smoked, and I'd grab one of his cigarettes and puff on it, and they didn't know that. And then occasionally, I used to be able to buy cigarettes like 20 grand and so forth for 10 cents a pack. And several of us would get together and scrounge up a dime and buy a pack of these really bad cigarettes, and smoke them. And I remember once one of the kids, a fellow by the name of Salvatore Compagna, we used to call him Sally, he stole one of his dad's cigars. And it was called a Ludicrous cigar, not the cheese, but that was the name of the cigar. And we smoked that, and oh man, I got sick. And my mother was all concerned. She thought I caught some sort of bad virus or something like that. So really, what I had done was that I had smoked a cigar. But she was a very trusting person. Very bad.
Daddy didn't.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Daddy didn't ever catch me with his cigarettes, but Mrs. Army did. We went camping. I went camping with Agnes family, and snuck a pack and rolled it up in my sleeping bag. So Janet and I had cigarettes there to sneak away in the woods and smoke them. But old Mrs. Arden decided to roll out our sleeping bags for us.
Billy, you stole them too?
Yeah.
Who stole? Anybody else?
Still about three, about
I
1
stole
week
cigarettes.
or 2 weeks.
This is called True Confessions.
I stole cigars and made Flip smoke. Flip never volunteered to do it, but I used to get Flip in trouble all the time. And I remember one time we stole cigarettes, one time we stole cigars, and we both got sick. I think Teresa went along on there. I think Teresa got sick with us too, and it was here, and we went across the street to smoke the cigars that we stole.
Whose cigars? My cigars?
Your cigars. I don't know where you got cigars from, but there's a price.
Must have been when we had a baby or something. Like the only time I could afford cigars in Watermelon.
I think Flip always kind of resented getting tricked into going along on these expeditions, because he didn't like to smoke.
You didn't like it. Oh, I didn't like it. I was too scared.
One time, Mommy threatened to make us sit down and smoke a whole pack of cigarettes right in the road. What?
That was enough to make me
What was that?
We got caught one time, too. I'm not sure, but Mommy threatened to make us sit and smoke a whole pack of cigarettes right in the road.
I heard that's the best cure. I don't know if I believe in that.
No, we didn't have to do it. It was just a threat.
Who else stole? I stole them, Bob. You never
I
smoked.
never smoked a cigarette in my life.
I'm just surprised it never caught on when we had 2 or 3 people.
That's Kathy's department.
I just thought of something else. 4th of July, fireworks were, or individuals shooting fireworks were illegal in New York City. And they were illegal in Connecticut. And we had relatives in Connecticut. My father's sister and her husband, the Cameras, and my father's half-sister, and her husband and 8 children, the Schlys, lived in Springdale. Both families lived in Springdale, Connecticut. And we used to love to go up there on the 4th of July because we could buy fireworks and shoot them off. And we used to go up there most every 4th of July. And I used to save my money from Christmas on to the 4th of July so I could buy these fireworks. And I remember I was probably around 10 years old or so. We went up there and we bought a bunch of fireworks and included in them what we call cherry bombs. I don't know if they still make them or not, but they were the most powerful firecracker that you can buy. They were round, I'd say 3/4 of an inch in diameter, but they had quite a bit of power. And you used to be able to take a 5-gallon paint can and put it upside down over a cherry bomb and light it off, and it used to lift a 5-gallon paint can maybe 10 or 15 feet in the air. So I got the bright idea, and this was on the 5th of July at home in Long Island City, that if it lifted a 5-gallon paint can 15 feet in the air, what it could do for a coffee can, it probably put it in orbit up there. So I got a Maxwell House coffee can, and I put the cherry bomb under it and lit it, and it blew apart, and a piece of it hit me in the head, and put a gash in my head, and blood went streaming down my face, and I went screaming inside up the stairs and all that good stuff. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, my mother was off to a funeral of Mr. Featherstone, my cousin George's wife's father, and she wasn't at home. My poor sister was home, and she was about 15, I guess, if I was 10. And she put cold compresses and all that good stuff on my head. And when my mother came home, she could see the blood going up the stairs. So she kind of thought something was wrong. So when she saw it, she screamed and moaned, and she got a hold of my cousin George, and he took me to the doctor to have it looked at and sewed up. I think I was the worst patient. It took about 2 of them to hold me down while they stitched up my head. Very, very bad. That's the scar from my head here on the right-hand side. It used to be way up in my hairline, but my bars got long pneumonia or something like that. So that's how that, let's leave that too. That can't didn't go as high as I thought it was going to go. Story here that I think might not be recorded for posterity concerns about 1949, perhaps 1950. We were in the Philippines, had 3 children, and as I remember, Mommy was off somewhere, and I had come back from a flight or some such thing. At least I was at home during the daytime, and Vicky was next door at one of the neighbors, and as I remember, she came running home, and she had swallowed a Philippine centavo, and it was lodged in her throat. The Philippine centavo was larger than a quarter, but smaller than $1/2, so it's a fairly good-sized coin. And I took her in the bathroom and held her upside down and beat her on the back, but really didn't do much good at all. And so I took her out, and Mommy had the car, so I took her out in the road and flagged down a Jeep, and she and I were whipping down to the hospital. And I got hold of Mommy on the phone, and she came down, and the doctors took quite some time, had to put her in anesthetic to relax her, and they took an esophagus scope, which is, I guess, a long pair of needle-nose type pliers. And after, I'd say a considerable period of time, I'd say an hour and a half, they finally got the centavo out. And I remember the amazing part of it was that the centavo was just as shiny as the day it was minted. And apparently the saliva and juices and so forth just polished up and that with when they got it, all the doctors or the medical personnel that were in the emergency room working on Vicky let out a cheer, like the home team had just won the game, and we knew then that the centavo was out, and it was. And but they wanted to keep Vicky there overnight because they had given her some sort of a gas, I believe, for observation. And so we went home, left Vicky there, and it seemed to me as though it was the next day we were going to go down to visit Vicky, and we had Flip and Kathy in the back seat of our 1940 Buick that was really a wreck. It had been over in the Philippines all during the war, and I wish it had a brace or something so it could have told stories because it was over there all during the Japanese occupation. But it was in such bad shape and rusted out so bad you could watch the road go by through the floorboards. It was pretty bad. Anyway, Vicky was in the hospital, and Kathy and Flip in the rear seat. We went around a corner. Okay, we went around the corner. We were on base going to the hospital. Went around the corner about 25 miles an hour, I guess. And we heard Kathy crying. And the crying got further away. And I looked out the rear view mirror, and there was Kathy sitting in the middle of the road. She had hit the door release and fell out of the car as we went around the corner. And she only had a diaper on, so she was in a concrete road. So she was skinned up pretty bad. So we whipped her over to the hospital. And the same team was on that was on the day before, and I thought, my God, these people do to their kids. So they checked Kathy over and took x-rays and so forth. Unfortunately, she wasn't seriously hurt. So we did have 2 kids hurt, treated there at the hospital. And right now, I really don't remember if they kept Kathy over there overnight or not at the time. I think they did. But we had 2 of our 3 kids in there at the same time. So fortunately, we could always say, well, we didn't big flip yet.
I'm curious, Kathy, you said that Flip had some flirting messages to Scotty. I have no idea. Oh, we went into that at all.
Flip was very, very young. He was born in April of 49, and this was either late 49 or early 50, so he was a year old or younger, so he probably wanted to, but he really couldn't.
Can Connie speak it to her?
While we're sitting here, we were talking about various and sundry things, and Connie mentioned that she remembered the day that my father died. So, Connie, would you tell us about it?
I remember him being on grocery runs from his heart. As far as I remember, he had problems with the root cause, and he was a very vivid boxing fan. And much to my grandmother's dismay, he would insist upon sitting up at night and watching his boxing games and getting very excited. And he proceeded to have me on his lap that night, watched one of the fights, and he got very, very overexcited. And my grandmother yelled, shut off the TV. I assume that I was put to bed. And the next thing that I remember is she was in the bathroom, and she heard a thud and could not get into the bathroom. Someone had to come from the outside of the house and close the bathroom window. He had collapsed and covered the bathroom door so that it was jammed. And that's really what I remember of it.
Yeah, I remember that my dad had a heart attack somewhere around 1950 or so while we were in the Philippines, and that he couldn't work after that. And then we came back from the Philippines in 1951, February 51, and we did see the family several times, and then we left from Hawaii. Or I left for Hawaii. The family was in Salt Lake City. My family in Salt Lake City, and I left for Hawaii in August of 1952. And I just got there. Was there a few weeks when my dad died.
I was about a year and a half when it happened.
And I flew back from Hawaii for my dad's funeral, but that's. So I was sort of after the fact type thing. I didn't know any of the details that was passing on. My folks didn't have a TV, but your dad's father had a TV, and it was the kind where the lid opened up and the pictures down here that are reflected in there. I don't know if you've seen those like that. I was very early. Then when we came back in 51, and my folks had a TV, I was just staying behind in the street today with the pictures in there. When we station of Westover at the time where Teresa was born, we bought our own TV because everything was black and white. So TV really came on strong between 48 and 51. So the first TV show I saw was in the World's Fair in 1939. There was a closed circuit type thing that was on display at the RCA Victor. So, and I guess the initial TV was somewhere in the 20s, 28 or something like that, that I had. We were able to send a silhouette type picture over it. I'm not sure whether they sent it over wires or whether it was wireless. But I remember
saying something in the Ruby Valley profile was saying on TV, but it was restricted at school. The definition of raised as black.
Oh, this is Mary Ann Bierbaum. This is July 2nd, and it's about 10 o'clock in the evening. Is that close enough? Okay, what's the person you're meeting with?
I'm not too sure. I think it was being out at my grandfather's place up on, what's the name of that mesa? Picking Mesa. And there were a bunch of family around and everything, and the men were talking, and I was standing between his knees going like this, making the voices fade back and forth.
How old were you then?
I don't know, probably 3 or 4, I don't know.
Is this near Duchesne?
No, this is in Colorado. Out of town, yeah, out of town.
Was this your granddad,
Foster.
Foster? Father's son.
Right. And he was married to a woman we called Annie Maud. His mother died when he was very small.
I remember one time you were telling me that you had a grandmother, I think, that had a really nice house.
That was my grandmother Halstead, mother's mother. Yeah, she
Married
was...
to Wood?
Well, Wood first, and then they divorced, and she married Granddaddy Halstead, and I can't remember what his name was, first name. Unusual name. Wait. He had a family too, but most of his kids were grown. He had one boy living with him. His name was Ralph, and that's where I went for the Wood family reunion out to Ralph Halstead's. And when they divorced and Granddaddy Wood was going to move out, his grandmother told him he had to take the kids, that he wasn't going to move off and leave her with all the kids to take care of. But Tom refused to go. So Tom stayed with grandmother and Granddaddy Halstead along with Ralph Halstead. And he went to school in Duchesne and graduated there.
And everybody else went with you, Dad? With your granddad?
Yeah, they moved to Colorado.
This granddad, Wood, he was the guy who was the crap, right?
Right.
He practiced medicine, but he wasn't actually a doctor.
He wasn't qualified, I guess. Didn't have a license. I don't know the whole thing. And then later on, after he left that wife that he had then, his second wife, married a younger woman who was younger than my mother, and had a son by her. And they lived in Texas, Stockdale, Texas. And there he practiced as a naturopath. He used diathermy, and he dispensed, like herbs and stuff. And he adjusted backs, he'd lay the people on the table and crack their backs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't your grandmother Halstead, wasn't she a midwife or something?
Yes, she went to school in Salt Lake and was a licensed midwife. We used to sit out in front of the theater, and she said, "There goes one of my babies. There goes one of my babies." That one's not paid for yet.
Tell us about the theater.
It was just a little.
Who owned it, though?
Granddaddy Halstead. And my grandmother sold tickets. And my mother usually took tickets. Ralph Halstead ran the tickets, so we saw 2 movies a week for about 6 years.
So almost every movie there was.
Well, and for a while there was 3 movies a week they were running every night. So they had 3 different movies a week. And then it was down to, I think it was Wednesday and Thursday, and then Saturday and Sunday. But at least 2 movies a week.
What'd your mother say about his father?